Life was perfect for me, or at least that's what I believed. My parents loved me more than anything in this world. I was their only daughter and the youngest in the family. My two older brothers always acted like they cared, but deep down I never felt close to them. Still, I believed that blood ties were strong and unbreakable. I never imagined that one day the same brothers would become the reason for my heartbreak. Everything changed the day I got that call. It was early morning and my phone rang. The sound itself felt strange, as if it was carrying bad news. My hands were shaking as I picked up. The voice on the other end was cold and distant. Your parents, they're gone. Car accident. Instant death. I froze. For a moment I couldn't breathe. My mind refused to believe it. Just last night Mom had texted me telling me to come home soon. And now, they were gone. Days passed like a blur. I cried until my eyes ran dry. I kept waiting for my brothers to call, to comfort me, to tell me we're in this together. But they never did. Finally, one morning they called me home. They said it was time to talk about the inheritance. I wasn't thinking about money. I just wanted to be around family, to feel like I still belonged somewhere. When I reached the house, everything felt different. The warmth I used to feel was gone. The pictures were off the walls, Mom's favorite flowers were thrown out, and the whole place felt like someone had already erased her memory. My brothers sat across from me, cold faces, no sign of grief. I waited for someone to say something, maybe share a memory of Mom and Dad. But no, that's not why they called me. One of them cleared his throat and pulled out a small box. We've decided to divide things, he said, his voice emotionless. Mom and Dad didn't leave you anything, except this. He opened the box and pulled out an old painting. It was dusty, the frame was cracked, and it looked like it belonged in the trash. I stared at it, confused. That's what Mom left for you. Just this worthless painting, he added with a smirk. My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked at both of them, waiting for one of them to smile and say it was a bad joke. But no, they meant it. They had taken everything, the house, the business, the bank accounts. And all they left me was this old, ugly painting. Before I could say a word, one of them stood up. You should leave now. There's no place for you here anymore. Just like that, they threw me out of my own home. I walked out carrying the painting and a small bag of my clothes. As I stepped outside, my eyes filled with tears. I kept thinking, was I not their daughter too? Did I mean nothing to anyone? The house that once felt like heaven now seemed like a stranger's place. Me. I was just a girl with a useless painting and no family left. I didn't know where to go that day. I just kept walking with the painting in my arms, feeling like the whole world had turned its back on me. After hours of wandering, I found a small room for rent in the city's poorest area. The walls were cracked, the floor was cold, and the ceiling leaked when it rained. But it was all I could afford. I paid the first month's rent with whatever little cash I had left in my bag. That night I sat on the floor holding the painting close. I stared at it for hours, wondering if my parents had really meant to leave me only this. Tears rolled down my face as I remembered Mom's smile and Dad's voice calling me his little girl. Everything felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from. The room was so silent that I could hear my own breathing. The next morning, reality hit me harder. I needed to survive. With no degree, no experience, and no help, the only job I found was cleaning people's houses. Rich families who didn't even bother looking me in the eye. Every morning I left that dirty little room before sunrise and returned after sunset, completely drained. My hands were covered in bruises from scrubbing floors and washing clothes. But I had no choice. Every night I sat in that corner staring at the painting. It was the only thing that reminded me of my parents. Sometimes I even talked to it, telling it how much I missed them, how hard life had become without them. I wondered if they were watching me from somewhere, seeing how their daughter was suffering. There were days I didn't have enough money to buy food. I drank water and went to sleep hungry, crying silently. I thought maybe my brothers would call, maybe they'd ask if I was okay. But they never did. I heard from others that they were enjoying life, driving expensive cars, throwing parties, and living in my parents' house like kings. Nobody cared about me. Not even the people who once called themselves my family. I was nothing more than a forgotten name. But somehow every night I held on to that painting, because it was all I had left. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Life didn't get any easier. I was surviving, not living. That painting became my only companion, the only piece of my parents I had left. I cleaned it sometimes, wiped the dust off the frame, and talked to it like it could hear me. I didn't know why I kept holding on to it. Maybe deep down I just didn't want to lose the last memory of my family. One evening it was raining heavily. Water was leaking from the ceiling and I was trying to clean the mess in my tiny room. As I moved around with a cloth in my hand, my elbow accidentally hit the painting hanging loosely on the wall. It came crashing down with a loud thud. My heart skipped a beat. I rushed to pick it up, scared that I had destroyed the only thing I loved. The wooden frame had cracked badly. For a moment I just sat there staring at it helplessly. Then something strange caught my eye, a small tear at the back of the canvas. I leaned closer and noticed something. Faint lines like numbers were hidden under the old, dusty layer. My hands trembled as I slowly peeled back a small part of the canvas. There they were, faded but clear enough. A long sequence of numbers carefully written behind the painting. At first I thought it was nothing, maybe an old serial number or some random code. But something inside me wouldn't let it go. A strange feeling like my heart was whispering, "Check it. There's something you need to see." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at those numbers, wondering what they meant. The next morning, gathering all my courage, I went to the nearest bank. I felt embarrassed walking into that huge building in my worn-out clothes, but I didn't care anymore. I asked to see the manager and showed him the numbers, my voice shaking as I spoke. I found these numbers. Can you please check if they mean anything?" The manager looked at me, then at the numbers. At first he seemed uninterested. But as he typed the numbers into his computer, his face changed. He stared at the screen, then back at me, speechless for a moment. Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice low. I swallowed hard. It was behind my parents' old painting. He sat back in his chair, still shocked. "Miss, this is a secret account. It was opened by a Mr. Edward Williams, your father, I believe. And there's $5 million in it. All under your name." For a moment, everything went silent. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Tears filled my eyes as I realized. My parents didn't forget me. They left me everything, just not the way anyone expected. I sat there frozen, staring at the bank manager as his words echoed in my head. $5 million. In my name. My throat felt dry and tears rolled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Right there, in front of everyone, I broke down. All the pain, all the betrayal, everything I had bottled up for so long came crashing down. I had spent months thinking my parents left me with nothing, thinking maybe I didn't mean as much to them as my brothers did. But now I knew. I was wrong. My parents loved me. They had seen through my brothers' greedy hearts and knew exactly what would happen after their death. That's why they hid this gift, this treasure, in the one place my brothers would never care to look. Inside that old painting. I could almost hear my mother's voice whispering, "We protected you, my child, in our own way." My chest ached with mixed emotions, pain, love, anger, and relief all at once. I had blamed them for leaving me behind, for letting me suffer. But they never really did. They just did it silently, knowing this day would come. I thought about that moment when my brothers shoved the painting into my hands, laughing at me, calling it worthless. And now that same painting had turned my whole life around. I wiped my tears, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. For the first time since losing my parents, I felt strong, like I still had a chance to live, to fight back, and to show the world that I was not weak. Not anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying everything. My parents, the painting, the hidden account. I cried until there were no tears left. But this time they weren't just tears of pain. They were tears of relief. My parents hadn't abandoned me. They had trusted me, believed in me, and left me something priceless. The next morning I went back to the bank and asked for help. The manager connected me with a trusted financial advisor. For the first time, someone treated me with respect. Not as a maid, but as a person who mattered. I sat with the advisor for hours, listening carefully, asking questions, making sure I understood everything. I didn't want to waste the gift my parents left me. I was determined to build something out of it, something they would be proud of. After days of thinking, I made my decision. I invested a portion of the money in opening a small cleaning company. It felt right because I knew what it meant to be on the other side. Scrubbing floors, washing clothes, being invisible to people. I promised myself that no one who worked for me would ever feel that way. They would be treated with dignity and respect. The beginning was tough. I handled everything: hiring, training, managing clients. I worked day and night, sometimes sleeping only a few hours. But I didn't mind, because this time I was working for myself. Slowly, Word spread about my company's honesty and quality service. More clients came in and the business grew faster than I imagined. Within 2 years, I wasn't just running a small company anymore. I started expanding, buying properties, investing in other businesses. I opened branches in different cities, hired hundreds of employees, and created a life I never thought possible. For the first time, I felt proud of myself. I wasn't just someone's daughter or someone's sister. I was a businesswoman, strong, independent, and unstoppable. And while I was busy building my life, I started hearing things about my brothers. Their businesses were struggling badly. They made poor choices, spent recklessly, and fell into gambling. The same people who once laughed at me were now drowning in debts. Their expensive cars were gone, their lavish parties stopped, and their so-called friends disappeared. I felt no pity for them. After what they did to me, they deserved every bit of it. Life has a strange way of balancing things. They had thrown me out with nothing but a painting, thinking they won. But that painting became my strength, my turning point. And now, while their world was falling apart, I was just getting started. Just when I thought life had settled, I got news that made my heart race. One of my old neighbors called me, not knowing how far I'd come. He told me my childhood home, the same house where my brothers threw me out, was going up for auction. They had defaulted on a huge loan and the bank was taking everything. For a moment I just sat there silent, staring at the wall. That house held every memory of my parents. The laughter, the love, and sadly the betrayal too. It was the same house my brothers once ruled like kings, treating me like I was nothing. And now, they were about to lose it all. A part of me wanted to forget it, move on, and leave the past buried. But another part, the part that still remembered how it felt standing at that door with a small bag and a worthless painting, knew this was my moment. My perfect revenge. I called my lawyer immediately and asked him to attend the auction on my behalf. No one was to know it was me. I wanted my brothers to think a stranger was buying their home. The auction didn't last long. There were barely any serious buyers. Within minutes, my lawyer placed the final bid and sealed the deal. Just like that, the house was mine. But this time I was the owner. I felt a strange satisfaction, not just because I got the house but because I did it quietly. They had no idea what was coming. Next, I told my lawyer to arrange a family dinner. One last meeting. The invite was sent formally, making it sound like a wealthy investor was interested in helping them recover their losses. Of course, they grabbed the opportunity. Greed was still running through their veins. I smiled, knowing they had no clue who was really waiting for them. My revenge was set. And this time they would sit across the table, not knowing the person they betrayed was the one holding all the cards. The evening of the dinner finally arrived. I sat in the same living room where I once stood broken and helpless. But this time everything was different. I was no longer that scared, abandoned girl. I was the owner of this house now, and I was ready. Soon I heard the sound of their car outside. My heart pounded, but I kept my face calm. The door opened and there they were, my two brothers. But they didn't look like the proud, arrogant men I once knew. Their faces were pale, eyes full of desperation. I could see it clearly, they were drowning and looking for someone to pull them out. They walked in nervously, looking around. "Where's the investor?" one of them asked. I smiled slowly and stood up, finally facing them. "Right here," I said. For a second they couldn't recognize me. I looked different, confident, well-dressed, successful. Not the weak sister they had thrown out. Their eyes widened as realization hit. "Why you?" one of them stammered. "Yes, me," I replied, my voice calm but sharp like a knife. Surprised. They stood frozen, not knowing what to say. I took a deep breath and looked them straight in the eyes. "Do you remember the day you called me home? You sat right here, told me our parents left me nothing but that worthless painting and kicked me out like I was nothing." Their faces turned red with shame, but I didn't stop. "That same painting, the one you laughed at, had something hidden behind it. Our parents weren't fools. They knew exactly what you both were. They left everything for me, $5 million. And you gave it to me with your own hands." I saw their bodies slump as the truth hit them. Tears welled up in their eyes and then, they dropped to their knees. "Please, we're sorry. Help us, give us one chance," they begged, voices shaking. For a moment I stayed silent, just looking at them. The same brothers who once left me homeless, starving. I gave them a cold smile. "I'm not your sister anymore. I'm your worst karma." They looked up, shocked, but I was done. I signaled the security. "Throw them out." They don't belong here. My brothers screamed, begged, cried, but the guards grabbed them and dragged them out. I watched, feeling no guilt, no regret. This was justice, my justice. The house was mine now, and so was my life. They lost everything while I finally won. After they were gone, I stood there in the empty living room, staring at the door where my brothers had just been thrown out. A part of me still couldn't believe everything that had happened. Life had come full circle. The same house where I was once betrayed had become my place of victory. I walked slowly to the window and looked outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. For the first time in years, I felt peace in my heart. No more pain, no more anger. Just a strange calmness, like my parents were watching over me, proud and smiling. I closed my eyes and whispered softly, "Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad, for trusting me, for protecting me even after you were gone." They had seen what I couldn't. They knew my brother's greed and cruelty. And instead of leaving me helpless, they gave me a gift. Not just money, but a second chance at life. I thought about my brothers. Greed had destroyed them. They had everything, love, family, wealth, but it wasn't enough. They threw me away for a few extra dollars, thinking they were smart. But in the end, they lost it all. That's when I realized something important. Sometimes what looks worthless is actually the greatest treasure. That old painting, the one they laughed at, changed my life. And sometimes, family isn't about blood. It's about love, loyalty, and the people who truly care. I smiled as I stood there watching the sun disappear behind the hills. I wasn't the same weak girl anymore. I had learned, grown, and found my strength. My parents' house, my house, was filled with their memories, and now it was filled with my victory too. I knew life would never be perfect, but I also knew one thing. I would never let anyone make me feel worthless again. Because I wasn't. I was strong, loved, and finally, free.